Good morning. Welcome to the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist in Newburyport, Massachusetts. I'm Mark Lyle, and I have the privilege of serving as your worship associate this morning. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We're glad that you're here. If you're new and you'd like to connect, please fill out one of the blue cards in your pew and place it in the collection plate. We come together at FRS in person and online, committed to love, peace, and justice. Our mission and our invitation to all of you is to come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, transform our world. If you are worshiping online and would like to access this morning's order of service, please click on the link just below the live stream. If you would like a large print order of service or hymnal, please ask an usher and they will be happy to help you. Please take a moment to review your order of service for all the activities happening this week. In particular, I highlight, as part of the 300th anniversary of the FRS, we will be having a party at the Museum of Old Newbury on May 18th. So please mark your calendars. Today, our guest preacher is Bethany Groff-Dorough, the museum's executive director. To support our relationship with the museum, we're encouraging anyone who's interested to sign up for a museum membership at coffee hour today or in the coming weeks. Next Sunday, February 2nd, our Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry team will be leading the service. They are asking that anyone who has accessibility needs or accommodation requests to email those to Reverend Rebecca so the team can have a better sense of what the congregation needs to do to be more inclusive. Your identity will be kept confidential, but your input is much appreciated. And there will be a congregational board discussion on Saturday, February 9th. Should be Sunday.
It should be Sunday.
Should be Sunday. Sunday, February 9th, where we'll talk through the renovation of Parish Hall, how it will be funded, and to learn about this year's annual campaign. It'll be downstairs in the lower meeting house from 11:40 a.m. to 1 p.m. on February 9th. Every Sunday, it is such a blessing that we can gather, so let us give ourselves to it. Welcome, once again. It's good to be together.
Thank you, Mark. One of the things I love most about church is that we don't have to be perfect to be welcome. So it's good that we've already made a mistake, so here we are. And thank you again. Bethany Groff is our guest speaker today, and Thomas Smoker is our guest musician. So thank you. It's good to have a little Joni Mitchell on a Sunday morning. Our call to worship this morning comes from the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of those can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. So you must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude, to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. So come, let us worship together. And I invite you to rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn. It's in the thick gray hymnal, number 298, Wake Now My Senses. Be seated.
Please join in saying our chalice lighting words as Sarah Spalding and Tim Fountain light the chalice. The words can be found in your order of service.
We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
Each week, we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth that we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. There are an untold number of places on earth that need peace, but this week we hold these 2 in particular. And after each candle is lit, I invite you to respond by saying, peace, salam, shalom. Our first candle is lit for this country, for all those who fear for their safety, who struggle to make ends meet, and who long for better days. Whatever comes, may we hold strong to our integrity, live out our promise to care, and choose to bless the world. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle is lit for all the places that are supposed to be safe harbor. The schools and the hospitals, the houses of worships, places that are now subject to immigration raids. May those who can get in the way have the courage to do so. And may all those needing comfort know that they are welcome here, inclusive of all and any immigration status. Know that we will never ask, and we will never keep that information, nor will we ever give it away. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Now please rise in body or in spirit and join our voices in our affirmation of faith, followed by the doxology. The words are in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Seated. I think many of you have already heard me encouraging you to be highly invitational about inviting people into this community. To invite the people that you know that maybe are lonely or overwhelmed or need a place to be in community, that this is a place where we do that together. But of course, when you invite people to come with you to this beloved congregation, there's inevitably that dreaded question, right? What is Unitarian Universalism? What do you believe? How many of you feel super comfortable answering that question? Okay, that's good job. I'm impressed that the number was that high. I found that one of the most common responses to this question is essentially, you don't have to believe in God, or they won't tell you what to believe, which is true, but if you stay at home, that would be true too, right? So I'm not sure how helpful that response is. And I think you have a particularly difficult time of explaining what Unitarian Universalism is, and instead we do this sort of, it's not all these other things, which still leaves the question but it is something, right? So enter. I'm teaching a 3-part class again that's intended for people who feel new or who are considering membership, but it's also open, right? Because if I raise these questions and you had that oh God, I have no idea, right? You're also welcome to come. It's next Sunday, February 2nd, the 16th, and the 2nd of March. Before church. And so I designed this for people who are new, but it is an open invitation. We'll answer questions like, what is Unitarian Universalism? And is it Christian, right? That's a sticky question. Why do we treat Mary Oliver poems like a sacred text? Yeah, we can answer that question. Does joining mean you're converting? What about babies, right? Do we baptize them? Because I know for a lot of people, that's the thing that they couldn't do, the cleansing babies of their sins. And that's, for a lot of people, the way they found their way to Unitarian Universalism, right? So we'll talk about that. What's with the babies in the water thing? What does it mean here? Who's in charge of the money? This is also something that's really important and can also be really sticky for people, so we're just gonna talk about it, right? And what does it mean to be part of a community of care? Also a good question. We use whether or not we can explain why exactly. We tend to be so afraid that if we invite someone to church, we're telling them what to believe, that we just don't say anything, right? I find it's really common when someone asks me what my job is out in the world, and I tell them I'm a minister, right? And then there's this like, oh God, she's judging me, she's gonna tell me what to do, right? And then I explain what Unitarian Universalism is, and they have this like, that's an option? What, right? So if we don't go around telling people that this thing is an option, it requires that they imagine, right? That there's a place that is welcoming, that isn't going to tell you exactly what to believe, but is going to affirm your humanity and is going to journey with you on that question of meaning, right? And so I invite you, especially as we navigate all of the chaos of the world, to spread the invitation wide, because you never know, right? Who really needs a place to be in community, to give space for hope, to think about what it all means together. So, you're invited to come to the class if you feel like that would be helpful, but invite your friends, right? Invite the people that you know to come to church, because we really need each other. So, thank you. And now we're gonna sing our children down to Young Church. So it's number 413, Go Now in Peace.
The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church, both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering, not designated as a pledge, goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. Our community partner this month is Nourish the North Shore. The mission of Nourish the North Shore is to ensure equal access to healthy local food to all members of the North Shore communities in a manner that builds community, fosters connection, and promotes dignity and self-reliance. The seeds of NNS were sown from the FRS program, Stir the Pot. So let's keep stirring. To give online, please use the link in your order of service or below the live stream. You can also make a contribution by text, and of course, you can always mail a check to the church as well. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm glad to be here with you this morning and worship and music. And this morning's offertory is I Never Saw More. It's an art song written by Richard Pearson Thomas in 1996, but it uses the words and poem by Emily Dickinson. So please join me. I never saw more, I never saw the sea, yet know I how the heather looks, and what a wave must be. I never spoke with God, nor visited in heaven, yet certain am I of the spot, as if the charm were given. Oh,
That was beautiful. Thank you. Each week, we lift up the joys and sorrows of our beloved faith community. This morning, Bettina Turner, our pastoral care associate, will light the candles as I read what has been shared before this service. If you'd like to share a joy or sorrow, you can always write it in this book in the vestibule or email it to betweenus@frsuu.org. Last Sunday, we shared that Jay McCarthy died on January 18th, and now preparations are underway for his memorial, which will be held here at FRS. We'll announce the dates once those are set. Jay's obituary ran in the paper this week and will be linked in this week's Between Us email. It speaks of his military service, his love of photography, and support both of this congregation and the arts in the community. We send our love to his wife Nancy and all those who are grieving. Please hold Lori Clark in your loving thoughts. Lori's older brother Bill Rittman died on Monday, January 20th. Bill resided in Florida. Bill Clary's father, Ed Clary, passed away on Saturday, January 18th, peacefully with his family by his side. He joined the Unitarian Universalist religion in 1973, attending the Stowe, Massachusetts church, whose minister was Hasdan Kafka. Ed was 90 and will be missed by his family for his bad puns, love of technology, avid news analysis, and dry wit. And we have 2 candles this morning to celebrate Deanna D'Angelo's birthday. She's celebrating her 79th birthday today. She said she's already received, or Mary Sordell says she's already received a beautiful bouquet of white carnations, her favorite birthday flower. She and her beloved, adoring 18-year-old cat Pixie will be enjoying the day at their home, and cards are welcome to be sent. And Bettina Turner also wishes Deanna D'Angelo a happy birthday. To her dear friend, she's not here with us in person, but frequently watches online. So, happy birthday, Deanna. And we light one final candle for all the joys and sorrows that go unspoken this week, all of the complexity, the things that maybe we don't yet know how to name, that we remember there's still space here in this community for the fullness of life, the full complexity of what it means to be human in the world as it is. And now I invite you into a spirit of prayer and meditation. And so maybe that means settling in a little more deeply into your body. I imagine most of us this week have felt extra tensed up and overstimulated and a little overwhelmed. So this is a moment, if it's available to you, to relax your shoulders, let out and exhale. Feel the presence of all those people around you who care too and are here in this community with you. Our prayer this morning comes from the Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt. In this moment of worship, we call to mind those times of failure and regret common to all of us. We remember first in silence those times when we have failed to do all that we meant to do, or through our actions failed to be all we were meant to be. We recall now to our moments of integrity, those times we have lived into our deepest values and acted as the human beings we have always dreamed of being. We choose at this moment to lay down the burden of our shortcomings and grasp the courage to begin anew. Together we affirm our capacity for goodness and for grace, for freedom and purpose and joy. We are not trapped in our past, but freed by creation to live and grow today. So with gratitude we say, blessed be and amen.
Bethany Groff Dorough is the executive director of the Museum of Old Newbury, having previously spent 21 years with Historic New England. She has received the 2024 Star Award from the Massachusetts History Alliance, the Preservation Leadership Award from the Newburyport Preservation Trust, the Pioneer in Preservation Award from the Essex National Heritage Commission, and the North of Boston CVB Leadership Award. Ms. Dorough is an honorary fellow of the Massachusetts Historical Society and serves on the executive boards of the North of Boston CVB and Lowell's Boat Shop, as well as the planning committee of the Newburyport Literary Festival. Her work has been published in the New York Times, New England Quarterly, the Encyclopedia of American History, and Historic New England magazine, among others. She holds an MA in history from the University of Massachusetts and resides in West Newbury on the Poor Farm Sanctuary with her family, which includes 4 to 6 humans, 7 sheep, 4 goats, 1 peacock, numerous chickens, a pig named Pearl, Ruskin the dog, and a vicious cat. Welcome, Bethany.
Thank you so much. I did send that bio a little tongue-in-cheek and said, please edit this. So you got the full flavor. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today and for inviting me to speak. I'm humbled to be in this sacred space with so many of the people that I love, although I can't see you because I have my reading glasses on. So you're a delightful blur out there, but I saw you all before. I hope that you're all familiar with the Museum of Old Newbury, or as some of you like to call it, the HIST, or the Historical Society of Old Newbury. We're Newburyport's history museum and only National Historic Landmark. This is the commercial portion of the sermon. With an astonishing collection ranging from folk and fine art to furniture, textiles, ephemera, a jaw-dropping archive, a research library, the largest collection of photographs of any one community in America. I will fight anyone who says otherwise, in a peaceful Unitarian sort of way. And all the wild, wonderful memories collected over centuries in one community, including one very large sign from an 18th century tavern whose presence in the museum prompted this talk. We also preserve a rather important early weather vane with which you may be familiar, and I hope you'll all come over and visit it soon. Overall, we hold nearly 80,000 records, objects, and images from this one place. We offer fun educational opportunities to deepen your relationship with your neighbors, past and present, living and not living. As we are a membership-based organization, we ask for your membership and support. Sarah and Tim will be in the back signing you up like crazy. And we thank our members and volunteers here today. I would especially like to thank Tim Fountain, who at the beginning of this said, "You roped me into something again." He is the treasurer of the Museum of Old Newbury, in addition to being, of course, a member here. 300 years, so many stories. Glee has told some of them, and I will tell a few more, and Glee will tell many more. When I was asked to speak here today, I was honestly not sure what I could add. Having never been asked to give a sermon, indeed, having been raised in a fundamentalist church where the last thing anyone wanted was to hear my thoughts on anything, I thought I could choose what for me is the safe route, just pick a history topic and go. Given the state of the world and the state of my own heart these days, however, this went a little deeper for me. I will say next time I will ask to not follow Glee, because she's a hard act to follow. And we're actually going to talk about the same guy, in part. I first met General James Wolfe years ago, and I must say at this point that when I say I met someone, that's not any guarantee that they are alive. I often meet people many centuries after they're dead. In the record, they sort of come alive for me, as they probably do for you as well. Someone asked me why Newburyport's most famous tavern was named after him. I had some vague recollection of a red-haired, lanky young man with a receding chin and something to do with Quebec. I said he was a British general. She looked unimpressed. So when did he visit Newburyport? She said. Well, said I don't think he ever did visit Newburyport. So why was the tavern named after him? I said something vague and plausible and scampered off to figure out why, indeed, British General Wolfe was so important in the history of this very revolutionary town. First, a bit of background. This is the history lesson part. Since the 17th century, France, Great Britain, and Spain had been vying for control of North America with its plentiful natural resources and opportunities for trade and economic expansion. Newbury, which first saw European settlement in 1635, was part of a British colony. And most everyone here had a friend or relative who suffered at the hands of the French and their allies. Anti-French and anti-Catholic feeling ran very strong. Raiding parties had attacked Newbury in 1695 and devastated Haverhill, Deerfield, York, and more. In 1756, Great Britain once again declared war on France, kicking off the 7 Years' War, known as the French and Indian War in the colonies, and marking another chapter in a long imperial struggle between Britain and France. De facto British Prime Minister William Pitt, of whom I am particularly fond, poured money into efforts to defeat the French at their headquarters in present-day Nova Scotia and their capital city of Quebec. James Wolfe was born in 1727 in Westerham, Kent, outside of London. Wolfe followed his family tradition of military service and rose steadily through the ranks. He served in Scotland, Germany, and France before being sent in early June 1758 to Louisbourg in present-day Nova Scotia. After the British took over the French fort at Louisbourg, General Wolfe began to plan a surprise attack on Quebec, now known as Quebec City. It was the capital of French Canada, and a feat thought impossible because of its location at the top of steep cliffs. Any of you who have visited Quebec City know it's perched right up on top of the cliff. Wolfe assembled about 4,800 men, and on September 13th, 1759, they scaled the cliffs and caught the French forces completely by surprise. The resulting battle, known as the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, lasted for less than an hour, but changed the course of history forever. It was the end of French colonial aspirations in North America. General Wolfe died on the battlefield. The French commander Montcalm died the next morning. It took almost a month for the news of Wolfe's death to reach Newburyport newspapers. In the 18th century, poetry was the only appropriate response to any powerful feeling, and the longer the words, the better. Sorry, Tim. Poems began immediately to appear in newspapers across the colonies, accompanied by descriptions of Wolfe's last moments. Here is a personal favorite.
The brave General Wolfe had 3 balls shot through his body, which brought him to the ground. An officer standing by immediately caught him in his arms and supported him, to whom the hero said, "Tell me, sir, do the enemy give way? Tell me, for I cannot see," his eyesight failing him, being then in the agonies of death. The officer replied, "They are beat, sir. They are flying before you." The general then said, "I am satisfied, boys," and expired in a few moments. What honors, Wolfe, should thy brave brows adorn, shall fading wreaths by other heroes worn, not breathing marble, nor enlivening brass, though there thy manly form thy eye may trace, not columns stately rising from the plain, to tell the victories which thy arms did gain, not generous praise, which tuneful bards convey, which lasts when other monuments decay. Though many a British bard thy fall shall mourn, and sing melodious dirges o'er thy urn, no works of mortal hand or mortal wit thy virtues equal or thy fame befit. Heaven saw, and straight prepared a nobler prize, and to receive it, snatched thee to the skies. Massachusetts.
Thank you, Tim. That's the shortest poem available. That was really just a couplet. There are many that go on for pages and pages. That was printed in the Newburyport newspapers. Indeed, a century later, in 1862, Wolfe and Montcalm would inspire Emily Dickinson to pen these lines. I'm not going to make you sing this Dickinson poem, although I wish you would. It was beautiful. So this is the Emily Dickinson poem. Wolfe demanded during dying, which obtained the day? General, the British. Easy, answered Wolfe, to die. Montcalm, his opposing spirit, rendered with a smile. Sweet, said he, my own surrender, liberty's beguile. Though Dickinson's poems can be a bit inscrutable to me, this one resonates. What better summation of the futility of war than two men, both relieved to die, one because he won and the other because he lost? But I hear you thinking, what does this have to do with Newburyport? Well, imagine, if you will, 41-year-old woodcarver William Davenport, a Newburyporter since he was a teenager, son of a notable Boston tavern keeper, member of this church community, and the father of 8 children, standing just out of frame in all the oft-painted scenes of General Wolfe's death. He is the captain of a company of men, mostly from Newbury. Of course, Newburyport does not yet exist. And he has rode silently through the dark and climbed up the cliffs in the gray dawn with Wolfe. He has risked his own life and that of the men with him, who are also his neighbors and friends, to follow General Wolfe on this impossible mission. Let me say now that General Wolfe is not the subject of the one and only sermon I will probably ever be invited to give in my life, because he died in battle or because he led other men to die. War is not something to be celebrated, in my opinion, though the experiences of individual people dropped into the terrible circumstances of war are worthy of our attention. Wolfe was a real person, a son, a brother, and he died too young for a cause that still causes tension and generational pain in Eastern Canada. But to William Davenport, standing just out of frame on the plains of Abraham on that great and terrible day, Wolfe was brave and noble and heroic, and Davenport's grief over the loss of someone he knew was real. We have no first-person record of William Davenport's feelings on that day or any other, though we can extrapolate from his actions. Even before the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, Wolfe was widely admired by the Massachusetts men who served with him. Just before the battle, one reported this:
"We have a most glorious campaign. Joy and health appears in every countenance. Though the fatigue and labor is very hard upon the soldiers, no murmuring or ranging. All things go on smooth and easy. The general seems to be endowed with almost divine qualifications for making and keeping up peace, harmony, and unanimity in the army."
Of course, after his death and ascension into the realm of mythic hero, everyone thought General Wolfe was great. But it would seem that even before, he was loved by those he led. Other men with whom he served reported that he would sing with his troops, choosing tunes they knew and adding lines that were funny or inspiring. Here's an example.
"'Tis but in vain. I mean not to upbraid you, boys. 'Tis but in vain for soldiers to complain. Should next campaign send us to him that made us boys, we're free from pain. But should we remain, a bottle and kind landlady cures all again."
I think that's the next Porterman hit. Others who served with Wolfe noted that he had high standards, but it was clear that he expected the most of himself, which made him an excellent teacher. He carried an ordinary soldier's gear, which was unusual at the time, and demonstrated to those he led that he was one of them, no matter their rank. He asked for and accepted many different opinions, but made up his own mind and accepted responsibility for his decisions. Whatever his reasons, when William Davenport came home, bought a house, and hung out a shingle as a tavern keeper, in 1762, he honored General Wolfe with the ultimate compliment. He named his bar after him. He was not the only one. Taverns, ships, and babies were all named after General Wolfe in the years after the Battle of the Plains of Abraham. And then things began to turn. The Stamp Act was passed in March 1765, imposing taxes without representation directly on American colonists. Resistance, especially here in Newburyport, was hot and violent at times. More taxes came with the Townsend duties in 1767, and British troops occupied Boston in 1768. The Boston Massacre followed in 1770, etc. In March 1774, the British Parliament passed the Coercive Acts, often called the Intolerable Acts, focused on punishing Massachusetts for her unwillingness to submit. Among other actions, Britain closed the port of Boston and required British troops to be housed in taverns and other buildings. The mood in Massachusetts continued to turn increasingly anti-British. Tea was dumped and burned. English officials, including other generals, long dead, were hanged in effigy, the ultimate threat, including right here in Newburyport. Other Wolfe Tavern signs were quietly taken down. Some were hauled down by angry mobs and burned. They disappeared one at a time. The few other original signs that survived from Wolfe Taverns in Georgetown, Massachusetts, and Brooklyn, Connecticut, are riddled with musket ball holes. Newburyport's Wolf Tavern was increasingly problematic as well, with the Essex Journal, the newspaper, calling it an insult to the inhabitants of this truly Republican town. William Davenport was not the only person who was loath to surrender General Wolfe to the anti-British mob. In fact, so conflicted were the residents of Newbury and beyond about the Britishness of their beloved general that attempts were made to turn him posthumously into an advocate of revolution. A remarkable dialogue was published in Massachusetts newspapers on January 23, 1775, with Wolfe returning from the grave to talk some sense into the hated General Gage, the despised commander of British forces in America and recently appointed military general of Boston. It ends with Wolfe giving an impassioned plea to his fellow British soldiers to refuse to fight their colonial countrymen in Massachusetts. In this little dialogue, I will play the hated Gage, while the long-suffering Tim gets to play General Wolfe.
I am the ghost of General Wolfe. Welcome, my old friend, to this retreat.
I'm glad to see you, my dear Mr. Wolfe, but what has brought you back again to this world?
I am sent by a group of British heroes to remonstrate with you upon your errand to this place. You are come upon a business unworthy a British soldier and a freeman. You have come here to deprive your fellow subjects of their liberty.
God forbid. I am come here to execute the orders of my sovereign, a prince of unbounded wisdom and goodness, and who aims at no higher honor than that of being the king of a free people.
You did not give up your privileges as a citizen when you put on your sword. British soldiers are not machines to be animated with the voice of a minister of state. They disdain those ideas of submission, which preclude them from the liberty of thinking for themselves and degrade them to an equality with a war horse or an elephant. If you value the sweets of peace and liberty, if you have any regard to the glory of the British name, and if you prefer the society of Great Britain, of Grecian, Roman, and British heroes in the world of spirits, to the company of royal executioners, I conjure you immediately to resign your commission. Assign the above reasons to your sovereign for your conduct, and you will have the sole glory of performing an action which would do honor to an angel. You will restore perpetual harmony between Britain and her colonies.
Wow. Meanwhile, back in Newburyport, William Davenport somehow had the courage to keep the name of the now reviled Wolfe on his sign, while also opening the doors of his establishment to those protesting the British government. The sign stayed up after William Davenport's sons, Moses and Anthony, both members also of this congregation, took over the tavern after their father's death in 1773. The sign was still up in 1811 when the original tavern burned. After the War of 1812, when the people of Newburyport despised the British just as much as they had in the run-up to 1776, the name of the inn and the tavern was finally changed to the Merrimack House, but, parentheses, under the sign of James Wolfe, Esquire. Though no longer honored as a general, the sign never came down. In fact, it will come as no surprise to you that letters to the newspaper were being written complaining about the change of name from Wolfe Tavern to the Merrimack House 60 plus years later. This town has always been like this.
I was pleased with the reading of the history of this venerable hostelry and of its present condition in the late Herald. It is greatly to be regretted that its name has been changed and the good old English word tavern has been given up. But it was wretched taste to give up the name so honorably associated with that of Wolfe, under whom its founder, Captain William Davenport, commanded the men of Essex on the plain of Abraham.
There was a great celebration in 1887 when the name was changed back to Wolfe Tavern. Wolfe Tavern was torn down in 1954, and its owner was granted a gasoline storage license by the City Council for the then vacant State Street lot on August 7th, 1956. On May 10th, 1957, the property was sold to Tidewater Oil Company, which then built a gas station on the site, opened by Harry Avakian in 1958. It is now the parking lot across Harris Street from the library. But let's return for a moment to William Davenport, who, to me, demonstrated integrity in his refusal to vilify a man that he believed to be just and kind and brave and honorable, even at the risk of his own safety and reputation. This did not prevent William Davenport or his sons from supporting the Patriot cause. In fact, at the Museum of Old Newbury, we have a receipt for payment to Anthony Davenport, who, 2 years after his father's death, was sending Newburyport men off to fight at Lexington and Concord, fortified with huge quantities of hot chocolate and rum. Thank you to Sharon for finding that record. Spoiler alert, we didn't make it. We were too late to make a difference at Lexington and Concord. But we did drink all the rum and the hot chocolate. Let me also acknowledge that William Davenport, whatever his personal bravery and integrity, is not known to have questioned his role as an enslaver. So the message that I have taken away from the Wolf Tavern is this: in a world where we privilege extremes because they attract attention and promote outrage, where mobs, real and virtual, can decide whose lives are important, where those in power can say 2 + 2 = 5, or else, I think of William Davenport standing in the gray area, defending what he knew to be true, that General Wolfe was a noble man, and that the British were treating their colonies unfairly. Both things were true simultaneously. William Davenport's sign survived the Revolution and the fire and the War of 1812, and is down in the lecture hall of the Museum of Old Newbury in all its glory right now, a testament to two men, one the face on the sign and the other just out of frame, a man of honesty and integrity, a man of this congregation. As I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, I was raised in a church community whose currency was fear. Fear of the government, fear of the devil and sin and yourself and everyone else. My wish for you all, for us all, is that our community currency is truth, the kind of truth that can withstand an angry mob. Hold on to what you know to be true, my friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. And I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn. It's in the Thin Teal hymnal, number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Remain standing and join in saying our unison benediction as Mark extinguishes the chalice. The words can be found in your order of service. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. As always, you're invited to coffee hour after the service in Parish Hall. We do encourage you, if you're interested, to sign up for a museum membership while you're there. And I offer you this blessing as you go from Hillary Allen. Gracious One, keep watch on the innovators, the trailblazers, the takers of risk. Invite us to be persons of vision and integrity. Help us to remember the mystery from which possibility is born. Lead us to honor the sacred space where ministries, idealists, and realists meet. Encourage us to imagine more than just what is. Fill our hearts in times of encouragement. Keep our eyes on the long now. Through our efforts, let us know the fruits of connection and a deeper faith. So go in peace, my friends, and return again in great joy. Thank you again to Bethany and to Thomas for being with us this morning.